President Boudreau, pay attention, you folks. President Boudreau, I have the honor to present the degree Doctor of Science, honoris causa, to Dr. Anthony Fauci.
Dr. Anthony S. Fauci is the director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, NIAID, and chief medical advisor to the President of the United States. As NIAID director at the United States National Institutes of Health, Dr. Fauci oversees an extensive research portfolio focused on infectious and immune-mediated diseases. As the longtime chief of the NIAID Laboratory of Immunoregulation, Dr. Fauci has made many seminal contributions in basic and clinical research and is one of the world's most cited biomedical scientists. Dr. Anthony S. Fauci was one of the principal architects of the President's Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief, PEPFAR, a program that has saved millions of lives throughout the developing world. In 2008, President George W. Bush awarded Dr. Fauci the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the highest civilian award in the United States, for his PEPFAR work. At the start of the Biden administration, Dr. Fauci began serving as one of the lead members of the White House COVID-19 response team and as President Biden's chief medical advisor. The City College of New York recognizes Dr. Anthony S. Fauci's outstanding career in biomedical research and as a medical advisor, as well as his dedication to the highest ethical standards and moral principles through his service. The City College of New York is proud to honor Dr. Anthony S. Fauci with the degree Doctor of Science, honoris causa.
Dr. Anthony Fauci, by the powers vested in me by the trustees of the City University of New York, I hereby confer upon you the degree of Doctor of Science, honoris causa. Congratulations.
Thank you so much, President Boudreau, for that kind introduction, and let me express my heartfelt gratitude to you and to the members of the Board of Trustees of the City University of New York for this distinguished honorary degree, particularly meaningful for me to having received it from a great professional, Mr. now Stanley Nelson. Thank you, Dr. Nelson. It's a pleasure to be here with you. Members of the faculty, distinguished guests, family members, and friends of the graduates, and you, the 2022 graduating class of the City College of New York, it is my truly great pleasure and honor to be here with you today in this wonderful city and to speak at your commencement. Let me say I am thrilled to be here in New York, my old hometown. Some of you may know that I was born and raised in the Bensonhurst section of Brooklyn. And I had the good fortune to attend Regis High School over on the East Side, and later went to medical school and did my internship and residency training at Cornell University, New York Hospital, now referred to as Weill Cornell Medicine, right here in New York City. For these reasons and more, I treasure my New York City roots. For me, City College has been a New York City landmark and a beacon of light for aspiring students since it opened as the Free Academy 175 years ago. Far into its now second century, your institution's steadfast commitment to educational access for all has been extraordinary and well noted. Yours is not an ivory tower university, cloistered from the world, but a visionary, urban college integrated into the world, a dynamic institution at the forefront of social change, an institution you should be justly proud to graduate from. I know I would have been if I graduated from this place. For decades, people like many of you graduating today from widely diverse and often modest backgrounds, and frequently born in other countries, have pursued the varied academic pathways available at City College to help create, as you've heard from other speakers, a fulfilling and better life. Because I am a second-generation Italian-American of immigrant grandparents, I feel a kinship to many of you. Both sets of my grandparents came to America from Italy at the turn of the 20th century, speaking not a word of English. I am forever grateful that they passed on to my parents, who imparted to me and my sister, as I imagine many of your parents did to you, how important education is to anchor yourselves and forge a rewarding life in this wonderful, beautiful country of ours. Let us talk about today's graduation. I have been privileged to deliver commencement addresses over more than 3 decades. Often, I have begun by recalling for the audience, like yourselves, my own graduation from college, describing some commonalities of experiences in our shared rites of passage. Clearly, that would not be appropriate in addressing your class. We cannot escape the fact that the COVID-19 pandemic has profoundly upended your college experience. Your very presence here today at graduation is testimony to your extraordinary resilience, resolve, and character that enabled you to complete your studies and to graduate amid immense difficulties and uncertainties. Together, your class faced one of the most traumatic public health crises in human history. I have the highest esteem for each and every one of you, your professors, and the leaders of this fine institution for pulling together and employing the best of your collective ingenuity, your passion, and your perseverance to find a way through the hardships posed by this pandemic to get to this very bright day of your celebration. This has been your experience for now nearly 2.5 years. Let us now look forward and reflect briefly on a few of the issues now challenging our society that you will be confronted with, some of these accentuated by the COVID-19 pandemic. I believe that your education here at City College and the spirit of the student body that you have been part of have prepared you to address these challenges, and I want to share some thoughts with you about this. First, the concept of public service and social responsibility. As you know, City College has a legacy of notable alumni, many who have gone on to prominent careers in public service. Among these notables include my late dear friend, former Secretary of State, Colin Powell, Henry Kissinger, another iconic Secretary of State, Daniel Patrick Moynihan, the former United States Senator, and Felix Frankfurter, former Associate Justice of the Supreme Court. And of course, the great scientist Jonas Salk, who, although not a career public servant, developed a polio vaccine that helped alter the trajectory of public health. I just hope I hope that some of you will just consider following the example of these distinguished alumni and entering a career in public service. For there is a need in our country for a better reflection of our racial, ethnic, and cultural diversity among leaders in public health, including in my own field of science and medicine. But regardless, we need you. But regardless of your chosen career path, there are pressing societal issues exist that none of us as individuals should ignore. In many parts of our country, communities are undermined by poverty, violence, drug addiction, inadequate health care, discrimination, and despair. Societies around the world are beset by additional problems that pose great challenges, such as uncontrolled endemic disease, poverty, starvation, infant mortality, refugee populations, violence against women, and the reappearing specter of genocide, most recently manifested by the immoral and deplorable invasion of Ukraine by Russia. Now, some of you may devote your careers to directly addressing these or other social issues. Understandably, most of you will not. Yet, standing up for social justice and contributing to the social good and bettering someone else's life by doing so can be incorporated into your own lives, regardless of whether you do this as a professional career. Dr. Stanley Nelson is not a professional public service, but what he does is serving the public. Please take this into serious consideration as you leave City College, because each and every one of you can do that. Which leads me to my next point of discussion: health inequities. We cannot escape the spotlight that COVID has shown on one of the great failings in our society, the lack of health equity. As a physician, I feel that I must highlight this for you today. Mere weeks into the pandemic, this was glaringly obvious to me. Over the course of the pandemic, long-standing disparities that undermine the health of racial and ethnic minorities have been starkly exposed. Many people in minority groups work in frontline jobs that do not allow employees to socially isolate or to work from home. And so each day, essential workers face a tough choice: to put their lives and that of their loved ones at increased risk of COVID-19 by going to these high-risk jobs, or to put their livelihoods at increased risk if they chose not to. Additionally, many people in minority groups who get infected with the coronavirus are more likely to become severely ill because these groups in general have higher rates of underlying medical conditions, such as hypertension, diabetes, obesity, among others, that increases the chances of hospitalization and death. Importantly, we must remember that these conditions are not genetically determined by race. Nearly all of these conditions are closely related to the social determinants of health experienced since birth, including the lack of access to a healthful diet, to health care, and tragically, obstacles and prejudice experienced because of the undeniable racism that persists in our society. We must not let our collective memory of the health inequities revealed during this pandemic fade. Together, we must engage our wisdom, courage, empathy, and imagination to support health equity and to tackle entrenched elements of injustice manifested in so many subtle and sometimes overt ways, to help heal the cultural disease of racism and its downstream negative effects on health, just as we've worked to heal the viral disease of COVID-19. If ever there was a time was right to undertake this enormous challenge, it is now. Next, leadership. The world you are graduating into is wounded and changed from a few years ago, but is recovering slowly. As we transition into our new normal, as it were, I am confident that many of you will play important leadership roles in shaping this process. You cannot do it alone, but it cannot be done without you and your leadership. What I mean by leadership is not necessarily designated positions of leadership with a title. Rather, leadership can be acquired through life lessons and experiences, and is a moral bearing that may take many forms, including the quiet and subtle leadership of your own example. Another important period of your life has been and continues to be lived under a specter of this historic pandemic. However, I have great faith that this experience will strengthen you and hone the leadership skills that are critical for our future. Which brings me to my final point of discussion, which truly troubles me greatly, and for which the country and the world truly needs your help. I refer to the normalization of untruths. It is blatantly obvious that we are experiencing a deepening divisiveness in our nation, fed by a flagrant devaluation of the truth. While genuine differences of opinion or ideology are part of a healthy society, increasingly, we are hearing, reading, and seeing outlandish statements and pronouncements propped up by deliberate distortions of reality. Fabrications, conspiracy theories, and outright lies are becoming commonplace from radical fringe groups, as well as from people who you would hope would know better, and you know who they are. Yet, segments of our society have grown increasingly inured to such falsehoods, while the outrage and dissent against this alarming trend have been relatively muted, and when voiced, are regularly castigated. If you remember nothing else of what I say today, I appeal to you, please remember this. It is our collective responsibility not to tacitly accept the normalization of untruths, because if we do, we invite danger to ourselves, our families, our communities, and our country. This is how a society declines into a way of life where veracity becomes subservient to propaganda rather than being upheld as our guiding principle. Each of us has a responsibility to counter this divisiveness that is tearing us apart. Reject the politicization of science that denigrates evidence and facts and the rigorous process of scientific investigation that continually reveals new data and truths. apply your skills in critical thinking that you have learned here at City College to discern those weak arguments from the strong and to renounce pronouncements built on untruths and outright lies. Resist the temptation, however, to let differences of opinion about which you might feel fuel hostility. By seeking and listening to opinions that differ from your own, our connections can be revealed, our differences can be explored, misunderstandings can be clarified, and a respectful path forward can be found. In closing, I want to put aside the serious business for a moment to celebrate you, all of you, on your day of graduation. Your professional lives are taking shape upon the rich educational foundation that you have acquired here at the City College of New York. While you are pursuing your professional aspirations, I encourage each of you to find time in your daily lives to embrace that which brings you happiness and joy. Allow yourselves to cultivate this joy as much as you do your professional accomplishments. And so think upon your future as that stated by the American political theorist John H. Shaw, and I quote, "The future is not some place we are going to, but one we are creating. The paths are not to be found, but made, and the activity of making them changes both the maker and the destination." I have no doubt that you in the City College of New York class of 2022 are going to be leaders in strengthening the bonds in our society and in safeguarding truth, justice, diversity, and equality in building that bright future together. And so congratulations to you, your families, and your loved ones. Good luck, and God bless you.